let's bring in NBC's senior national security analyst, Juan Zarate. He was the former deputy national security advisor to President George W. Bush, and he's a senior fellow at West Point's Counterterrorism Center. Mr. Zarate, great to see you. Thank you for being here this morning. So everyone bracing for the inauguration on Wednesday. It is one of the most important symbols of our nation's democracy. Is the country ready?
Well, I think we're ready, Kristen. I think January 6th was a wake-up call that the political protests can get out of hand, that there are actors willing to attack the peaceful transfer of power in the nation's capital, and that the intelligence and information that we've had about potential threats is very real and needs to be taken seriously. And so what you've seen in terms of the preventative measures being undertaken by the Secret Service and now aided by the National Guard is to really create concentric rings of defense around the inauguration site. So I'm not worried about the security of the vice president, the president-elect, and the senior officials to be there. I think what's more worrisome is what happens outside those gates and in other parts of the country.
Juan, since 9/11, of course, Americans have been so concerned with the threat from foreign terrorists. January 6th reminded us that one of the biggest threats that exists right now is from other Americans, from domestic terrorists here at home. I want to put up a picture for you if I can right now. And law enforcement have been looking into images like this. It looks like a military formation by some of those rioters. The images now leading officials to believe this wasn't just a riot that got out of control, but a coordinated, calculated effort following trained maneuvers. How do you view the threat?
I think, Peter, it's a great question. There are three dimensions to this. One is the FBI and other law enforcement and intelligence officials looking at how these kinds of attacks are perhaps being coordinated, not just in Washington, but across the country, and whether or not we're seeing a much more organized, violent movement than has been assumed. So that's one part. I think a second part of this that's concerning is the mixture of people who've been involved, former military, some law enforcement, people who've sworn to defend the Constitution and to protect American citizens at the heart of some of this. That's troubling. And then finally, whether or not there is not just coordination nationally, not just movements toward violence on January 20th, but what happens beyond that? Is there activity to try to disrupt governance around the country after the inauguration? I think that's really what officials are worried about.
Well, and you talk about the threat all across the country, and you make the point that it's not just Washington, D.C. We know that capitals are going to be on high alert. So they don't have the same resources, though. I guess that's the concern. How can they make sure they are protecting themselves?
You're right, Kristen. I think state capitals have to gauge the amount of threat that they're sensing. Federal officials are trying to give them as much information as possible. You obviously have the FBI with their joint terrorism task forces that coordinates with local authorities. And of course, as you reported, there are National Guardsmen now being pulled into state capitals to protect sensitive capitals and facilities. So I think you have people now with their eyes wide open, recognizing that this is a very real threat. And nobody wants to see what we saw on January 6th, which is government buildings, even government officials being threatened, being attacked. And I think that's really going to be the focus on the 20th.
Yeah, and beyond, as you say. Juan Zarate, thank you so much for really important information this morning.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Find your favorite recipes, celebrity interviews, uplifting stories, shop our favorite deals, and so much more with the Today app. Download it now.